What if I told you? Goliath had a brother whose rage shook the earth and whose thirst for vengeance was never quenched. Few know of Lahmi, the silent shadow of Goliath. When the champion of Gath fell beneath the sling of a boy shepherd, the world thought the threat was over. But in the smoking silence of the valley of Elah, someone else was watching. He did not cry, he did not speak, but he swore an oath soaked in blood. This is the story the scrolls whispered about, the one left buried in dust and shadow, the revenge of Goliath's brother. The sun bled into the horizon, casting long shadows over the valley of Elah. Where once the Philistines laughed, now only the wind dared to speak. The earth still drank Goliath's blood, dark, thick, unmoving. His colossal body lay cold, mouth open in disbelief. Around him, vultures circled, but they did not descend. Someone else had come first. Lahmi, his brother, taller, broader, and darker of spirit, knelt beside the corpse. His fists trembled not from sorrow, but fury. His jaw clenched as he stared at David in the distance, raising the giant's sword in victory. A boy, a shepherd, a thief of honor. Lahmi didn't scream. He didn't fight. He watched, memorizing every line of the boy's face, every twitch of David's smirk. And as the sun dipped, he whispered only 4 words into the soil. I will return, greater. That night, while Israel celebrated and harps danced in David's tent, Lahmi walked barefoot to the high places of Ashdod. There, before Dagon's shattered image, he made an unholy vow. The priests tried to restrain him. He crushed one spine with a single hand. Your God failed my brother, he hissed, but I will not fail him. And then, the ground began to tremble. Something old had heard his cry, something older than even Goliath. In the heart of Philistia, the revenge of a forgotten brother had begun. The temple of Dagon stood fractured, its idol crumbled from an earlier humiliation. Israel had mocked the fall of their God, but in the shadows of its ruins, the night stirred with something unholy. Lahmi walked in barefoot, his massive frame stained with dust and blood. Philistine priests watched from afar, afraid to approach. They knew who he was now, not just Goliath's brother, but something more. He carried the severed head of a lion he had torn apart with his bare hands on the way here. A sign, an offering. I come not to beg, Lahmi said, voice deep like thunder, but to unleash. The high priest of Ashdod, trembling, stepped forward with a scroll, an ancient covenant long forbidden, one whispered only in secret. The oath of Anakim. Giants long ago had forged it, sons of the Nephilim, before they were scattered and hunted. Lahmi placed his bloodied palm upon the scroll. It hissed. Smoke rose. The language etched on it began to glow. Then the ground cracked. From beneath the broken altar, black mist erupted. A voice, older than kings, whispered into Lahmi's soul, You are the last, but not alone. Suddenly visions stormed his mind, giants hidden in the east, sleeping under a stone, waiting. Lahmi fell to his knees, his eyes glowing faint red. The covenant was sealed. The high priest fell dead beside him, heart burst from fear, and far away. David awoke in his palace, sweating. He didn't know why, but the war wasn't over. It had just begun. He no longer walked. He marched, thunder in his steps, death in his gaze. The oath had changed him. Lahmi's skin, once scarred and worn, now pulsed with dark strength. His veins glowed faintly beneath his arms, like fire had been poured into his blood. The Philistines whispered his name with awe and fear, Lahmi the Reborn. City after city opened its gates before him, not out of loyalty, but trembling submission. Crops withered when he passed. Pregnant women cried without cause. The land knew. In Ekron, he wrestled a bull god idol to the ground and shattered it. No more silent gods, he roared. I am the hammer now. He entered Gath, the place of his brother's glory, and descended into the catacombs where Goliath's armor was sealed. It was too heavy for any man, but Lahmi lifted it like linen. The helmet, breastplate, and sword of the fallen champion, are all reforged in sacred black fire. And on that night, thunder cracked without a storm. He raised his brother's sword high and cried into the heavens, "You took my brother with a stone, but I return with steel." Lightning flashed across the plains. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, David summoned the prophet Gad. "A darkness stirs," the king murmured, "not political, not foreign, but old." Ancient Gad said nothing. His eyes were wide. In his hand was a scroll. One word had just burned itself across it. Lahmi. The storm was coming, but it was wearing armor. King David stood alone on the palace terrace, his harp untouched, strings swaying with the night breeze. Below him, Jerusalem slept, but in his spirit, a storm howled. Since the day he killed Goliath, his soul had known peace, until now. "You feel it too," David said without turning. Gad nodded. "A name has returned to the scrolls, one thought buried beneath Philistine dust." David closed his eyes. Lahmi. The name tasted of rust and blood. The prophet unrolled an ancient parchment. Its letters rearranged themselves by unseen hands. They formed a vision, blurry at first, then clearer. A massive figure standing amidst fire, holding Goliath's sword. But it was twice as long, twice as cursed. David whispered, "Why did no one tell me Goliath had a brother?" Gad's hands trembled. Because he was hidden even from history, buried by the Philistine priests, sealed by blood rituals. He was meant to be the second spear, released only if the first fell. David gripped his sword. "Then I am the trigger." A child's scream echoed from the city below, and suddenly the palace flames flickered blue. The darkness wasn't waiting anymore. It was advancing. Beneath the ancient city of Gath lay a forgotten chamber, sealed in stone and flame. Few had entered. None had returned. But Lahmi stood before it, bare-chested, a war priest whispering incantations behind him. The air sizzled. The stone door cracked with a groan not heard in centuries. Inside, in the center of a blackened altar, lay a weapon wrapped in chains glowing red. Goliath's original blade. Not the sword David took, but the true one. The sword forged in the fires of Anak, shaped with the blood of beasts unknown, quenched in the tears of widows. It was never meant for mortals. The war priest hesitated. It was cursed after Goliath's fall. Even the gods turned their faces from it. Lahmi shoved him aside. "I do not need gods," he growled. "I need vengeance." He stepped forward and grasped the hilt. The chamber screamed. A flash of darkness exploded outward, torchlight dying instantly. Lahmi's veins bulged, black smoke curling from his mouth as he lifted the weapon. It whispered his name in forgotten tongues. The sword had chosen its new bearer. In the cities of Philistia, animals shrieked. Wells turned bitter. Trees bent unnaturally eastward. In Jerusalem, Gad fell to his knees mid-prayer. His eyes rolled white. "He has awakened the blade," he gasped. "The cursed edge is once more unsheathed." David gripped his harp with white knuckles. He remembered that sound from the valley, the hum of steel before a giant charged. It had returned. The tabernacle stood in Nob, nestled between hills, a sanctuary of peace and holy fire. The priests of Yahweh rose at dawn, robes clean, lips chanting psalms to the rising sun. But on the seventh day, the wind arrived wrong. The air turned thick, birds vanished, the sacred lamp dimmed, and then they heard it, the low groan of earth bending under impossible weight. Lahmi. He walked through the outer court in silence. No war cry, no shouts, just the dragging sound of Goliath's cursed blade across stone. A young priest ran forward. "This is holy ground. You must not—" Steel flashed. The boy's head rolled gently into the grass. The priest screamed. Incense spilled. Trumpets dropped from trembling hands. Lahmi stepped into the inner court, his shadow falling on the ark's veil. "Your God took my brother," he growled. "Now I take what's his." With a single strike, the veil tore in two. Blood misted the sacred altars. One elderly priest lifted trembling hands and began to pray aloud. "Yahweh, shield of Abraham, deliver us." The blade silenced him. By midday, 37 priests lay dead. The holy scrolls burned. The altar dripped red. And in the middle of it all, Lahmi stood, breathing slow and deep, as the ark glowed faintly, untouched, yet pulsing with unseen energy. He did not dare touch it, not yet, but he stared, and it stared back. The land now bleeds, and Yahweh does not stay silent. From the ashes of Nob, a voice is born. In the quiet hills of Shiloh, where once the ark had rested, a boy no older than 15 knelt beneath an olive tree. His name was Eliam, the son of a poor potter, unknown to the scribes and unseen by kings. But heaven knew his name. That night, as stars turned red in the heavens, Eliam dreamed. He saw smoke over Jerusalem. He saw giants walking among men, their feet crushing vineyards, their eyes burning with vengeance. He saw the ark of God weeping. And then, a whisper. Not loud, not forceful, but final. "Tell David, the watchers stir." Eliam awoke screaming. Fire danced in his eyes. His father rushed in, but fell back in fear. His son glowed like a burning scroll. The next day, barefoot and trembling, Eliam walked south, alone, through valleys stalked by jackals, through towns whispering of dead priests, through Philistine patrols that strangely turned away from him without reason. In 3 days he reached Jerusalem. Guards moved to block him, but they stopped mid-stride, confused as if held by invisible hands. Eliam stood before the palace gates and cried aloud, "O King David, singer of psalms, the veil has been torn. The blood cries from the sanctuary. Goliath's brother walks, and behind him comes fire." Inside, Gad dropped his cup. David rose slowly, eyes locked with the boy's. "I saw you," the king whispered, "in a dream." Eliam nodded. "I've seen you too, in a battle you have yet to fight." The earth now groans beneath ancient footsteps. Forgotten bloodlines awaken, and giants are not just legends anymore. Lahmi stood at the edge of a black ravine in the wilderness of Rephaim. The stars above dimmed as he raised his blade and uttered a name older than the flood, Shamnael. The ground trembled. From beneath stones the size of altars, shapes began to stir. Deep, guttural breathing echoed through the cliffs. Fingers thick as branches clawed through the soil. Dust fell like ash as they rose. The hidden bloodline, sons of giants long thought extinct. Their eyes were pale. Their skin carried the scars of ancient battles. Some had 4 fingers. Others bore the twisted marks of forbidden unions. They were not men, not fully. They were the sons of the Nephilim. Bound by ancient oaths, they emerged, 10 in all, drawn by the call of vengeance. The taste of holy blood spilled at Nob. Lahmi spoke no words. He only raised Goliath's reforged sword. They knelt. Each had slumbered for generations, hidden in crevices, watched by ravens, buried by time. But now, the blood of the slain priests had unlocked their sleep. In Jerusalem, Eliam collapsed. "They rise," he gasped. "The old ones, the cursed ones." David stood over the boy, face pale. "We were not trained for this. These are not men we fight." "No," said Gad from behind. "They are echoes of defiance, offspring of rebellion, and they answer only to death or divine fire." Across the land, wells dried, crops failed, livestock refused to move. The giants had returned, and Israel's soil remembered its weight. The sling had once silenced a giant. Now, in the face of many, its song must rise again. David stood beneath the sycamore tree outside Jerusalem's gates, harp in one hand, sword in the other. His face was older, lines carved by war and worship, but his eyes still burned with the fire of that day in the valley of Elah. He remembered the weight of the sling, the wind, the silence before the strike, the thunder of Goliath's fall. Now he heard that silence again, but multiplied, tenfold. And so he called forth Israel's finest, mighty men, archers, swordmasters. But in the midst of them, one boy stepped forward, Abinadab, a shepherd from Bethlehem, freckled, lean, with a quiet gaze. He carried no sword, only a leather sling, and a pouch of smooth stones. "What do you bring, boy?" barked Joab, commander of David's guard. "A memory," Abinadab replied. "A melody of war, a song the earth once feared." David approached. "Who taught you?" The boy smiled. "Your story, my king." David placed a trembling hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then sing it well, for the giants have risen." The boy nodded. That night, under a blood-stained moon, he practiced his aim, stone after stone splitting bark from distant trees. The whistle of the sling carried far. In the valley of Rephaim, Lahmi paused. He looked eastward, eyes narrowing. "The sound," he muttered. One of the Nephilim growled, "It is only a child." Lahmi grinned, baring jagged teeth. "So was the one who killed my brother." But this time he would not fall. Now the mountains shake, altars fall. The clash of heaven and hell draws near, the final cry before the stone flies once more. Thunder echoed across Mount Gilboa. Smoke curled from shattered stones where sacred altars once stood. The giants had come, 10 Nephilim at Lahmi's side, trampling vineyards and flattening hills. Villages lay in ruin, their wells poisoned by darkness. The ground wept. Israel's army gathered at the base of the mountain, 5,000 warriors, trembling not from fear of men, but of legends walking in flesh. David rode at the front, his silver crown glinting beneath a bruised sky. Beside him, Abinadab stood, stone pouch at his side, sling tied to his wrist like a covenant. The priests of Levi stood behind, barefoot, carrying what was left of the holy relics, the broken censer, the crimson-stained scrolls of Nob. And then they came, Lahmi, the giants, the sword of Gath. The moment their feet touched the field, the heavens howled. David raised his hand. "Do not charge," he whispered. "Let the Spirit go before us." Suddenly, Eliam stepped forward, eyes glowing, scroll in hand. He shouted into the storm, "You stand on land consecrated by blood not yours. You carry strength but not righteousness. You wield a sword, but heaven holds the stone." At that, Abinadab swung his sling. The sound was like lightning tearing open the sky. Lahmi raised his sword, but too late. The stone struck, not his forehead, his heart. It shattered like clay. The Nephilim screamed, their bodies convulsing, breaking into dust. And the earth was silent again. But not for long. The end has come, not with thunder, but with a stone. Yet from the dust of fallen giants, a greater truth is revealed. Lahmi fell to his knees. The sword of Gath clattered from his hand, its cursed glow fading into black ash. His eyes, once burning with hatred, dimmed like dying coals. Blood seeped from his chest, but not just any blood. It shimmered faintly, unnaturally. Abinadab stood still, sling at his side, breath held. David approached slowly, every step a memory. Goliath, Saul, the caves, the songs, and now, this. Lahmi lifted his face, twisted in disbelief. Stone," he choked. David nodded. "The same weapon that brought down your brother. Not because it was sharp, but because God was in it." Lahmi grunted. "Where was your God when my brother fell?" David's eyes were fierce, yet mournful. He was waiting for justice, not revenge. Lahmi coughed, black mist escaping his lips. The old gods lied. And then, with a final breath, the last son of the giants collapsed. A great wind swept through the valley. The remaining Nephilim crumbled like sandstone. The skies cleared, birds returned. Israel stood in stunned silence. The battle was over, but not the war. David turned to Abinadab. "Guard your heart. Vengeance always grows in the shadows of giants." The boy nodded. The sling still hummed in his hand. High above, the heavens watched. Somewhere in the spirit realm, a scroll was sealed. And beneath the soil, deeper than roots, a whisper stirred once more. For as long as men seek power over purpose, the stones must keep flying. And so the giants fell once more. The last cry of Lahmi faded into the silence of the hills, and the earth drank his blood as it once drank his brother's. The sword of Gath, shattered into nothingness, was never seen again. But the scars remained, on the land, on the altars, and in the hearts of the people. David returned to Jerusalem, a king burdened not by victory, but by vision. He had seen the old evil rise, and he knew it would rise again. He placed the boy's sling, Abinadab's sling, beside the ark, not as a relic of war, but as a prophecy in cloth. Eliam, the prophet child, vanished soon after. Some say he was taken up into the wilderness to be taught by fire and wind. Others say he still walks among us and watching, warning. And in the deepest, most ancient caves where no man dares tread, something still stirs. A heartbeat beneath the rock, a whisper behind the silence. For as long as pride walks among kings, as long as altars crumble, as long as men seek power over purpose, the giants will rise, but so will the stones. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more biblical stories like this.